Welcome back to Two Homers and a Realist. The Sooners have lost in magnificently bad fashion to Missouri, 23-30. We're going to talk about it and break all that down. I'm Steve.
Connor.
Lucas.
Jay.
So, guys, before we get started, I'd just like to thank our sponsor, Little Debbie. As everybody knows, Little Debbie gets us through the tough times and the good. There's been a lot more tough times than good times so far this season, but thankfully we have Little Debbie. We have Christmas tree cakes. I had a oatmeal cream pie on the way home
We were representing.
We were representing, baby. They're wonderful. Thank you, Little Debbie, for your sponsorship. Let's get to it, guys. I got an observation for you. In 1998, I'm driving back from the OU Missouri game, and that's when we knew for sure it was done for John Blake. That, I think I mentioned this on the midweek pod. That's when it was over, and everyone knew it was over. It was clear writing on the wall. There's no debate at this point. We were awful, and we weren't getting better. I'm not saying that's where we are, but I start with two questions for you guys to answer. Very similar. Should Brent Venables be the coach of the Sooners in 2025? And will he be the coach of the Sooners in 2025?
I have a question before I answer that, just so that I know.
Such a politician to answer a question with a question.
In 1998, was there the coaching contracts the way that they are today?
There was
it
not.
a bunch of money to get rid of John Blake?
Correct now.
Okay. I just wanted to preface that before.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So I'll throw out, I think he both should and will be the coach in 2025. I'm soft on the should, but I think he should. I think he deserves another year.
Yeah, we were talking about this on the way back from the game, Steve and I was wrestling through this answer because it's not an easy one at this point, I don't think. I will say I think he definitely will be. I'm more on the fence of if he should be, but if I had to pick one way or another right now, today, I'll have to just, and this leans back on the offensive changes that hopefully are coming. I will say he should be as well today.
I'm going to say he will be based solely on the buyout. I don't think we wrestle enough money up to make it happen now. He should not be because he does not have the killer instincts. I don't know. He's not tough enough in practice, or he's too nice, I think, to have the killer instinct that we need to go out and get what you need to finish the job. Like, he's got the defense there. He hasn't. I mean, I don't care what the metrics said last year. We know that offense was just good, but not great. If we had last year's offense with this year's defense, we would be a top 10 team. We might have 2 losses. We probably just have one.
We'd be 9-1.
But
we'll be 9-1.
Got a question about that coming up?
It's sickening to watch our defense play their balls off and get down to the end of the game. And yeah, they gave up the final drive on, the holding call. We got the fall down on the deep pass, the amazing catch by Weiss.
The best throw that quarterback will ever make in his career.
Leading up to that, the defense had done everything they could to get us in line to win that game.
Missouri had 5 yards after the first quarter. 5 yards of offense.
They had scored 16 points. They got a defensive touchdown to give us the lead. They did everything they could, and the offense just puked all over itself.
Jay, should will.
Oh boy. Will, yes, for the same reason Lucas is talking about, and I don't think he should. Again, along the same lines, I think kind of what you're getting at is maybe he's a little too worried about the culture and the type of person or players we have on the team.
Yes.
Right?
Which was a worry when he got hired, that I mentioned.
We're just a little too much like, hey, are you going to become a good citizen when you leave here?
Grades are going to be great.
Type deal?
Blah, blah, blah.
Priorities.
No, I don't think. I'll preface this by saying I still think you can win and have good human beings on your football team.
Sure.
Okay. That I do think it is a deal.
But realign the pecking order of those priorities.
But I think where that comes into play for us is I think there's a strange pecking order of the guys that do the right things, the guys that practice right, the guys that aren't late, the guys that have good grades get the start or get the play or play more than somebody else. When we're like, we just need to freaking
need dogs.
win games right now.
Well, I agree with all of that, and I worry about that. And those do reflect worries that we had from
That's
the
killer instinct
get-go.
that you said.
And I mean, I'm not trying to turn this into urban minor Florida. I
Sure,
don't
no,
want
no,
that.
no, no, no,
Correct.
no.
But if it's a Georgia situation where the idiots are going out getting speeding tickets all the time or whatever,
Right,
not showing up for class. I mean, Saban had good character guys,
right,
and won,
right.
but that's obviously few and far between that you can do
And
both.
you're always
But
gonna
I'd
have
rather
knuckleheads.
err a
Well,
little bit on athleticism and maybe
I
not
don't
as
think
much
it's even a
class.
trade-off. I don't even think it's a trade-off. I just think it's getting everything going in the right direction together. So I think some of those metrics you speak of, Jay, that are maybe too high in the priority list or overemphasized are also just misidentified. You want intelligent players. Look at Will Howard. Look at Brock Purdy. We were watching today Brock Purdy win a game and do really well, unfortunately, against Baker at San Francisco. He isn't lighting the world on fire. He was never going to win a Heisman Trophy. Will Howard's not going to do that. And it remains to be seen if Will Howard's the guy.
How did y'all watch that game when you were driving back?
We have technology.
Oh, okay. Just wondering.
So Connor watched that game. I watched the road.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, he kept me informed. It was like radio commentary of what's
Oh,
going on.
okay.
It was
He has
very
lane,
good.
he has lane assist.
Just
Yeah.
making sure.
Elise was
assist.
driving. So
It's 2024.
you need intelligence. You need good character. You need guys that do the right thing. You want leadership and captains that are those things. But if you don't understand how it all works together, you start to just check boxes instead of identify people that are very good in all of these facets in the right degree. And I fear that's some of what we've done.
And for me, I don't know if that's really what's going on. I think I'm just trying to find an answer for what I feel like is just the strangest personnel choices that are out there. Our best receiver, like it or not, for the last 2 games has been Jordan. He didn't step on the field until the third quarter, where he almost made a pretty good contested catch. It looked like he did at first,
Which would have been
against
a
you.
great, important
right?
catch.
First,
That was the only snap of the game. Like, where's the accountability for an Emmett Jones where JJ Hester is on the field for 50 snaps of this game, and the only receiver the last 2 weeks that can get open and make a freaking catch gets one? I don't care if Deion Burks was back. I don't care if Farouk was back. Find a way to get all of them on the field at the same time.
Well, it's the same indictment on DeMarco
Yes,
with Robinson.
with every back we've
With every
had
running back
for
we've
4
had
years.
for 4 years. And now you're in a position where you have to decide if you're going to burn Robinson's red shirt or not. He looks like he looks like he could have been a great kind of I say replacement loosely, but replacement for Tawi Walker with the way he runs
And at least a role
and how
player.
physical he is.
We're starting freaking running back.
Or a starting running back.
Yeah,
I
give him
mean,
a shot at it, right?
he
Let him run his
comes
way.
in, gets 2 carries, gets 18 yards immediately off of 2 carries. 18 yards immediately. I mean, that's so crazy. And it's just, I tweeted about it during the game. The personnel management over the last 2+ years that we've had is
All 3 with Brett.
a massive negative towards what Brent Venables is doing within this program. And I ended the tweet with, be a head coach. Just be a head coach. I know he's leaving a lot of these decisions up to DeMarco or Emmett.
Well, we don't know, actually. You suspect.
I do. I
Yeah.
suspect, and from everything we heard, I suspect that. But the tape is clear. What we see on the field is clear. And we it's like we do the opposite of the right thing. Like you said, Jay,
Constantly.
like Jacob Jordan is the most obvious case here outside of Robinson. Thompson goes down the field one time last night. We overthrow him and not really heard from again. Jacob Jordan sees the field one time, drops a contested pass. That's it. And he's been your most productive wide receiver for 2 games against one SEC opponent and against Maine, and he looks amazing. And we have 2 guys back. We got to make sure we get Thompson in the game. Jordan's the fifth man up type of thing. It's just weird. It's crazy to me, and it's a
So-
massive mismanagement of the team.
It makes you wonder too, are there other players at other positions that are like that? Right?
Well, you have to
like
suspect
who
there,
else are we missing out on
absolutely,
right now?
including guys that
That
we
could help this
like
football.
Offensive
Headaway.
lineman.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
so, I've identified a few things, and this isn't gonna be a full, we'll do an assessment when maybe cooler heads can prevail, and I don't mean that those cooler heads necessarily come down one side of this or the other, but I wanna do an off-season, right after the season, full assessment of Brent Venables, assets, liabilities, how does it stand? But here's some things that just look pretty bad. One is clock management, game management, and player management. All of those have not been good for 3 years. We've identified many, many mistakes there. Hiring decisions seem bad. He hired Levy, which has problems. He seemingly forced a combination rather than let a guy come in and have his own staff. He hired Seth Luttrell.
He hired Ted Roof.
He hired Ted Root. We can talk about those hiring a little bit later. I think those are real telling and critical and concerning. And the other is just a toughness and attitude where it seems like we fold under pressure. It seems to me that
We don't know how to win.
offensively and defensively, you don't know how to win. And we don't come in with swagger, and we don't come in just with, let's just go get it done. So all of those things look really problematic to me. I have my own theories about, and I don't think they're too different from anyone else's, about what's wrong with all of that. A lot of it comes down to coordinators and lower position coaches, but eventually all of that has to come back on Brent.
We've talked about this several times, particularly offensively. At what point in this past week of game planning did they sit there and say, let's do a jet sweep with Bauer Sharp
Mhm.
and have the young running back who has struggled with blocking be his lead blocker?
Yeah.
Well, that's what we were yelling at during.
How? How does that get, okay,
Or a 0 yard play when you have to have.
but how does that get past
Right,
DeMarco,
right.
Beaton, Emmett Jones?
And say this is dumb. This
No
is
one can
dumb.
stand up and be like, no, guys,
This is
we're
not gonna work.
we're not doing that play.
Yeah, and that's
Just
what
all of the
we were
speed you
screaming
have
at that. We
out
were
there.
screaming at that
Just
during the
stop
game.
it.
That was
we were
second and
screaming.
10 on the 20-yard line when it was 3-0 with 9 minutes in the second quarter.
Yeah, and we were
I don't
screaming during the
care.
game. What are you
You
It
practicing?
never-
was in a
Yeah.
What are you practicing? Like what are you doing at practice?
Does
That
it
is what
work?
blows my
Does
mind.
it work?
Unless
And
they
does
think,
it work?
can't work.
unless they think
I
that's
wholeheartedly
setting up
believe it
a
can't work.
play that you're going to run
It
2 or
works if you're
3
running it
times
there.
out of that play,
And we didn't.
we didn't.
So none of it makes sense.
Yeah.
It can't make sense. And it's play calling all the way down.
And Sharp should not get the heat for this.
No,
Something
No,
I-
no, 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 no.
Something I said after the
Play
game,
call.
like
I mean,
Sharp is getting a lot of flack. Sharp is running. Sharp
He dropped the ball early in the season.
dropped it,
too many
and that's
times.
what. And that's what I said is
He made a great catch on the fake punt.
yeah.
Because he
Outside
had
of
to kinda
that,
come back
he had
for
to
it.
come back for it. Outside of that, Sharp has been pretty good the last 3 games, in my
Yeah.
opinion. When we've used him less, yeah, but for what he's been asked to do, he's doing it. You can't blame Sharp for freaking, hey, Bauer, we're gonna run a jet sweep with you. Figure it out.
has anyone
It's not
ever
gonna
ran
work.
a jet sweep with a tight end before? Anyways,
Maybe
mean,
a
Jason
tight
Kelsey.
end that's not named
Yeah. Keith
Keith
Jackson.
Jackson or
And that was a reverse.
Aaron
That was
Hernandez or
literally
like
a trick play.
there's like 5 tight ends in the history of football that you
Yeah.
can run a jet sweep with.
Right. I mean, if you have like a
Shannon Sharp, maybe.
yeah, some guy with speed. Well, even our man from a few years back.
Mark
Sure.
Andrews.
No.
Jermaine
Well,
Gresham?
Mark. No. Who was quarterback?
Oh, Braden Willis.
Braden Willis.
Oh yeah.
A guy like that. But you just know what Sharp brings kinetically, so you can't possibly think that's going to make sense.
He can't get sideline to sideline with his speed.
No, he's not elusive.
But
he's
what
not powerful.
What the fake punt showed and what we haven't been able to do with him, the dude can get vertical. Like he caught that ball and he looked
No,
fast.
he's
he looked fast
he's
as
he's
hell.
talented.
good in space.
Right.
He
yeah.
is athletic.
But we don't get him in
He's
those
good in space. So
positions.
He's not good at contested catches. He's not good at like quick slants and different things. But yeah, if you scheme something open, he'll catch it and he
Well,
can run
I
after the
mentioned to
catch.
Connor again, something that we had noticed before and we made comment on the pod. I noticed it again. So the guys come out and they're warming up after halftime and they're punting balls and the guy punts a ball, it was a soft punt, but it was at least 30 yards, if not 40. And he one hand reaches up and catches it like
And the ball didn't even
like
move,
you threw me,
right?
yeah, and the
Yep.
ball didn't even move. Like you threw me a tennis ball. And
He did that
again,
at the South Carolina game in
I
warm-ups.
think what it is
Yep.
they see a guy who's super talented and they think we can just use him and do all these things. It's just not going to work. You can take Wayne Gretzky, as great as he was at hockey, and if you put him on the mound, he's probably going to be a pretty average pitcher at best. What are you
He's a
doing?
good golfer.
He is probably good. Yeah, he is.
What
Good.
was
pretty
Peyton
sure-
Bowen doing?
So that's
Don't
The,
know.
the guy was a little bit close to him, but he stood his ground and then realized that he needed to dive forward for it. And then in the scramble, instead of just blasting it out of bounds,
He goes and tries to dive on
he
it.
tries to dive on it. He could have literally crawled one or two crawls and just pretended like he was trying to get it and swiped it out of bounds, and it's our ball.
It's
Well-
hard to think of in the moment.
but Peyton
That's
Bowen.
practice.
But
It is
it
practice.
is.
That's
It is.
Situational, and we saw it. They do practice stuff like that because Billy Bowman went out of bounds to field a kickoff
And grabbed
to
it.
make sure it went out of bounds.
Yeah.
That was
He
smart.
knows the rules.
That was smart.
Why is Billy not back there catching punts? It's
Well, we don't want him back there catching punts because he got injured on a kickoff return.
well, honestly
At
though,
this
that's
point-
why
Like we
Billy
talked
hasn't
about-
done much
But
this
we're
year. Where I'm
desperate.
like,
What we've
yeah,
talked about
desperate.
before, there's 20 guys on campus on that team that fielded punts for their high school team for 4 years probably
Mhm.
because they're elite athletes. They're the best player on their team. Any one of those wide receivers can catch a punt.
It gets
The
back
running backs can
Well,
probably.
but
catch
not
it.
being game ready and the difference between
Was
practice and
super
game.
dangerous in high school returning punts.
But he's
probably
probably
why we
this
won.
year.
Well, it's better than
For
6
whatever
last year
reason,
from
we see this epidemic or virus that's in the team of when they actually are on the field, they can't perform the way I'm betting they perform in practice. I don't think Jackson Arnold looks like a deer in headlights in practice, and he's going up against one of the top defenses in the league. He knows they're not going to hit him, and maybe that's the difference. But I cannot believe that our offensive line is stopping our scout team defense from getting at him.
no.
He's got to be on the run, but he's got to be seeing the field. I get to a different thing, and that is how much of it is scheme. You look at the receiving routes, you look at the blocking design. You sent some screenshots, Jay, that everyone's seeing, and we're seeing that one of them, Burks is wide open.
He just doesn't see the.
And I mean, Burks is wide open
I
on
think he's
the
looking at
comeback.
line because
I
they're-
no.
But
I
in
know
that
that,
play,
but I'm
he
saying
had
something different.
he had a perfect half circle
I agree.
protection. and he
But
took
here's
off
the
our-
deal. Here's the deal that I think is a mistake in design. You have 4 guys running 5-yard button hook routes. What sense does that make? And I told Connor, it's like the old parable of the donkey who starves to death because there's hay on equal side of him and he can't decide which one to go to. If you tell him just throw to the open guy, his brain he's not going to know. There's no reason to look A, B, C, or D. You got to say, here's the route, here's the primary, here's the secondary. If you got 4 guys running the same route and they all look the same and pressure's coming, I get why you don't know exactly what to do because it all looks the same to you.
And your safeties are right behind them. They've got a corner.
They were all
around them.
over it.
And then you got a
Yes.
safety 4 yards away because nobody went deep.
It's just bad design. I come back to blaming coaches.
There's no question the route tree that we have currently that we can't seem to get away from, even with the change of play caller, is less than ideal. Whatever was set up for 2024 season was.
And that's an understatement. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's so awful. So I get to this question, which is all of this just relitigating the obvious? And there's honestly no reason to expect anything different. I mean, I don't know if you guys are on the same page as me, but I think we should fire Seth Luttrell. It's done. It's happened. And I don't mean this to be a complete criticism of us and all the other fans who are obviously living in our basement and can't pay our bills. Oh, wait, that's a different program. But how could we expect anything different? This is just what it is. We went into a game. It was pathetic. It was awful. I don't know if this gave us any new information. It may have just reiterated some information, but it's just where we are.
It seems like the run blocking has gotten better the last 3 or 4 weeks. And then we'll run it and get 4 or 5 yards. I added up the 2. I didn't add up Franklin.
We
and I
abandoned
took
them.
away
We
Jackson
abandoned the
Arnold.
run.
But if you just go with Tatum and Robinson's rushing yardage, they average 4.76 yards a carry.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to me, you're not just going to run it 3 down, get a first down, 3 down. You're not going to do it every time. But there is definitely places in that field that in the middle of the field, especially when they're still looking for the pass, that you could have run 3 times in a row and picked up 14 yards.
Absolutely.
And then you run again, and maybe they stop it for 2 or 3,
Mhm.
and then you throw a pass for 5 or 6 yards.
Not for 0 yards on an out pattern.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Or a jet sweep to a tight end.
Right.
And then you run it up. We didn't have any problems running up the middle on him. Robinson we had patience, and he had just the straight power burst when he took the handout. He could do both. He could see the field. He was doing everything you would expect a senior running back to do, and he was in high school a year ago because we went and watched him play.
He was in high school.
And I
Was he
think
an
the
early
reason
recruit or early signee?
No.
Yeah, he was in high school 7 months ago.
he came in June or whatever. But I can understand earlier in the year, they always say running back from the hardest positions to learn because of pass protection. But on first down, put him out there and let him run the ball. Second down, maybe you do a swing pass where he doesn't have to stay in and protect,
Right.
or you run the ball.
Well, here's the deal. Missouri with Drinkowitz is not sophisticated enough to know any of that in terms of this personnel. He's not going to look over and see Robinson in there and go, "Oh, there's
They're
no way
definitely
they're
running."
passing.
Yeah.
Don't worry."
Right.
They're not going to know that.
Yeah.
So you can
especially
do
when he's
whatever
only-
you
he only
want.
carried the ball in 2 games. He carried 2 carries 2 of those games.
They're not going to know that. They're not going to be able to react that quickly, especially there at the end of the game.
And then
Very
on
frustrating.
the final drive, I was watching the game on my back patio with my cousin, and I said, the game's tied. There's minute 7 left. We need to pick up a first down at least to go to overtime. I mean, they only had 1 timeout left. So worst case, we would have been able to punt with like 10 seconds left. But I said, run the ball 3 times. If you get the
Right.
first down,
Then you.
you think about doing something else. He
Mhm.
could have picked up first down on the second run,
Mhm.
but instead the second play was the fumble for a touchdown.
Well,
Hey.
what's crazy is we thought we were good enough to go
Yeah.
75 yards in.
We didn't need 75
We only
yards.
need 40 yards.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough.
That's the thing.
Well,
That's what I was
Well,
telling
not
you.
just that we played like we were behind.
We
Yeah.
started on the 25. If you get 12 yards after 3 runs, because we're averaging 4.76, let's say, so let's just cut it down to 12. Well, then you're on the 37, and there's probably 35 seconds left.
Right.
And then maybe you take a shot to the sideline and try to get one of those 7 or 8
Yeah.
yards, and then you run 2 more up the middle, and you use your timeouts. And next thing you know, you're on the 40-yard line, or let's say 38-yard line, kicking a 55-yard field goal to win the game.
So
Or at worst, you're going to overtime.
exactly
At
right.
worst.
Exactly the way you should be playing that.
How do we know that?
Because
And
we're
they
smart.
don't.
And how do they not is the question. When I look at that, it just the frustration makes my blood boil because it's not that complex. It's obviously what you do.
And
We
they're going to let
played-
you run.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We played like we were behind by 4 points and had to get a touchdown.
Yep.
What are we thinking? To me, here's the deal. I understand Joe John Finley was only co-offensive coordinator, but there's no excuse. You should know all of that. Here's the deal. I think Brent Venables should know all that. If I'm Brent Venables and I know in the situation I'm in, I don't have my true OC. My brain is, I've already thought this through a million times. I've already run this through on paper a million times. I can take over the play calling duties and I tell you what to do. Minute left, you listen to me. I'm on the headset. Here's what we're doing.
Now, do you think you guys would be arguing the same deal if we had ran it 3 times and gotten nowhere and then been like, why aren't we trying to win this game? All we got to do is get in field goal range.
No.
No, because I
No.
would have been fine with overtime at that point.
Yeah, I would have understood what they were doing.
Yeah.
I hope I would. At least that would be, and if not, if I had designed that, I would have a defensible, here's what I did, why I did it. And I don't think there's any defending what they did and how they did it. To me, that's where all the way up to Brent Venables, it becomes extremely frustrating and worrisome that he
Yeah,
doesn't know what to do enough that he should be able to call those plays and just, it's not complex. You don't have to rethink the wheel here. It's not 10 seconds left and we got to get creative with the double hook and ladder or something.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any major deficiency from Brent Venables. It's just all the little things add up to, I
Losses.
don't think he can get it done.
That's what they add up to.
Like, correct. But I'm saying like
Yeah.
it's all little things that lead into, I don't think he can take us to the promised land as a head coach.
So
For as well as our
that-
defense played, if we'd have went to overtime, I would have felt good about
That's
it.
exactly
Oh,
what we said.
yeah,
at the beginning.
Because
Yep.
their kicker had missed a
Yep.
extra point that was 5 yards for the back.
Oh, we
with
totally
the
agree.
penalty.
Yeah.
So at worst case,
And we're running the ball well.
I mean, you may give up a touchdown, but I think you hold them and they kick a field goal, and then you're starting from the 25. I'd say there's probably a 35% chance we score a touchdown to win the game, but at worst, we're getting a field goal on that.
Yeah, I do
And then
too.
you go to double overtime,
And
then you start doing the 2-point
You
conversion
just force
stuff.
it. Yeah.
And what have we done? We've had goal line stands.
Right.
We had a goal line stand against Texas last year. We had goal line stand, was it BYU? I mean, we had a couple that we.
Well, we had a goal line stand that we took for a 99-yard touchdown for an interception, wasn't
Yeah.
it on the
So
1 yard line?
I mean,
2 yard line?
we've
Yeah,
had,
We've had them
BYU.
this year too.
yeah, we've had them this year too. So we've had goal line stands. So when you get to, if you can get to the, is it double overtime or triple? They start doing that.
Triple, double, you have to go
So
for
if you go
two.
field goal both ways,
Whatever,
both
yeah.
rounds.
Yeah,
and
whatever.
you get to the
We
end
should
of
have
it,
the advantage.
I feel good about us plugging Robinson from the
Because-
middle for a touchdown.
Because we have the advantage. We're the better team.
I
We're
know.
the better team all the way down.
Yep.
That's just add to the frustration of it all. So let me ask you guys this. I asked Connor this on the way back. And he alluded to it a minute ago. What is OU's record? Everything else is the same, except we really basically don't have the injuries. So if the offensive line comes in healthy from the get-go, and the receivers are healthy and we don't have the injuries, maybe one of them happens, but not all of them. What is OU's record as compared to what it is today at 5-5?
I say 2-3 losses at worst.
I agree.
That was my answer.
That was our
I
answer
agree.
too. We had the same two, maybe only two, definitely no more than 3 losses.
Texas is a better team.
Yep.
Ole Miss, that day we were better than they
If
were.
we don't have the
Right.
injuries, yeah.
Um,
I mean,
Tennessee,
now
you could
what
toss
if,
Tennessee is the same.
let me change one more wrinkle. What if we still had Levy? 9-1? Where the one is probably Texas?
That's what I said.
I don't know.
I said 9-1.
It's a lot better than what it is, and it's
It's a
probably
lot better
something
than
like that.
I mean, it's maybe with all those healthy guys, Latrell's play calling is better.
Yeah, that's
and
the other part.
And it's the same situation. Like
I don't
he's-
know though. Like,
He's
I,
8-2.
but
or
is it better though?
7-3.
Because even and again, I know we were hurt game one. We weren't good against Temple. We weren't
No.
good against Houston.
But that's okay. I mean, it should have looked better, but it's okay to not be.
Yeah, but like I
Clicking.
don't. My point is, I don't know if
I mean, you're still
I
got a
don't-
freshman quarterback.
I
You
don't
got-
think Seth's play calling gets better with or without injuries. Like I
Right.
think it is what, and that may have been a detriment to him because he didn't make an adjustment to his play calling
Right,
when the injuries started rolling in.
but his
I
play
think it's-
calling and his entire playbook design is
It's not
flawed
good.
from
It's
the
not good.
get-go.
If
There's-
I'm going to be pro, keep BV top deal, or any of the offensive staff whatsoever, I think it's nearly impossible to gauge what could have been. Honestly,
Well,
I don't think you
Well,
can.
not about impossible, but it's
I don't think you can put
you can't
anything on
dial it in.
anything.
I don't
Because-
think it's gonna be 5-5. I'll bet hard against that.
Yeah, but I'm saying I don't think you can determine how good or bad things would have been. There's so many nuances in football that all that stuff changes. It changes literally every play
Sure.
of,
Yeah, that's the point
of
though.
every game.
Well, my point is
I
that
just
I'm
mean
kind of
the
getting at.
entire way the defense lines up, how much pressure
Oh,
they
sure.
bring, when they
Everything.
don't bring it, how far their safeties are up, how many times are they pressing, just
Right, and that's
all
why
of
the
it.
record would be different.
all
Is
of it.
because of that. All those things would be different. We would be better. I don't think with Seth that we're ever going to get to the promised land. I think there's a chance with BV we could, but we are in a position where we're going to have to make the right hire at offensive coordinator that is wholesale changes, complete and utter changes.
Do you think it's harder 1 week removed from last week? Now, do you think it's harder now to get a top offensive coordinator?
No,
No,
You don't think so?
no.
no. I don't think so.
If that was the case, you would have like you
Okay,
wouldn't have
how about
people like
losing the game? You don't think losing this game and not going to a bowl and having a little bit of a hope and a little bit more job security for BV helps you get a better offensive coordinator?
it may play like a
I don't know.
nominal factor in the whole thing. In my opinion, I will stick by this until we are in the depths of hell, which we're on our way.
Yeah, we're like Dante's levels. We're at
it-
5.
Yeah, we're getting there. the University of Oklahoma offensive coordinator job should still is a top job in college football outside of a head coaching job. Like it is. I really, truly think that.
Yeah, I don't think this
And I
changes
think there's,
anything
if
materially.
you look at the talent that we have, like it's not.
It's
like,
not
okay,
scary.
No, it's like, oh, okay, I can work with
I bet
this.
there's some.
You're not going to
I
tell
bet
me
there's some
Indiana.
OCs that are salivating at.
Yeah.
Do you
the
think
talent.
it changed the age of the OC that we're getting, or the experience level? of the
That I do think it may have changed that dynamic where it is, if there was any doubt that it's one and done, make or break, now we know for sure it is. So if you're going to hire a guy, you know you've got to hire a guy that delivers. That may actually lend itself to go ahead and get creative. It doesn't matter if it's a big name guy, because the big name guy buys you time potentially. The big name guy goes like, okay, I'm so excited about this OC hire. I see progress. Yeah, this season in 2025 isn't great, but we're going to give him a grace of another year. I don't think that grace is going to exist anymore. Partly because of this game right here, and that's fair or unfair. That's just the reality of it. So now it's like, well, go ahead and roll the dice, because it's going to work or it's not. You go get the best guy you can get with the most upside you can get. You probably do want to get the highest likelihood of success, but that threshold of success is got to be, I think we talked about this on the drive home, see if you guys disagree. Now I think it is 8-4 at worst, and maybe that's not even good enough. It's 9-3. Either way, you have to be a playoff contender. And I'm saying that from the standpoint of you have to both or either make the playoff or you miss the playoff due to circumstances beyond your control. The way LSU might miss the playoff due to circumstances beyond their control this year if they're 9-3. That you did everything you could do. You were very competitive in every game, but the SEC is just not going to get 5 or 6 teams in, and you happen to be in a 5 or 6 team situation that you're good enough otherwise, and everyone knows you're good enough to beat most of those teams. I think anything short of that, you're not going to get there. So therefore, I think you go get an offensive coordinator who can get you to that spot in 2025, not a guy who can rebuild and get it there after he gets his guys in or whatever. So I think it kind of lends itself to the younger guy or the unknown up and comer.
But if you're a hot shot enough to be getting looked at, right? You've got better situations to go to.
Like what? What would be better than Oklahoma?
A place that's not going to lose your job that year.
I don't see how that would cost.
But it should that you're
Like if the
undercutting
Oregon
your
guy goes somewhere.
you're
you're
undercutting
getting
your own
job
abilities.
because landing is set.
Exactly.
If the
If a guy, if
the Bama guy goes somewhere,
if you're
the
replacing,
Moore's not getting fired.
if you're replacing a guy because that
So how about
guy
Florida
did
State, they
so
just
good,
fired both coordinators.
he moved on. Yeah, but those guys didn't move on to greener pastures.
No.
Because they did so good.
I'm saying we instead of hypothetical about a job that opens up, because that's a little bit different conversation. I'm saying, which guy do you go target? I get it if you're saying if a guy's got 2 job offers in front of him and one of them's here and one of them's there, but the jobs that are open, unless something happens, are going to be Florida State or Oklahoma or some other potentially lame duck situation. They're not going to be, or they're going to be a lower level team that it doesn't matter.
Well, Tulane's like
But I think they're-
Tulane's OC to that point.
Right.
Tulane's OC is interested in Oklahoma. From everything I've read or seen, that's an actual possibility. quote
Right, but
unquote.
what I guess what I'm saying is, okay, what happens when I don't know, Indiana's or Ole Miss's or something offensive coordinator takes the head coaching job? Again, that Tulane guy, that is a much more stable spot.
I
to
don't
go
think he
to.
goes to Indiana over Oklahoma. I don't think so.
And it gets back, but
I
I mean,
think you
but
guys
then you
are
get
too
into,
close to the situation.
but then you get back into, I mean, it's
Indiana.
It's recruiting tactics. It's the same thing with coaches as it is with players. And that's exactly what I'm saying. It's Indiana. This is Oklahoma. Yeah, like I know we're down. Everyone sees we're down. How often in the past 25 years has Oklahoma stayed down? 2014, Lincoln Riley probably could have gone multiple, or 2015, Lincoln Riley probably goes multiple places or has an opportunity to. Bob Stoops hooks him. This is OU.
And he was pretty
You can
much
build something.
he was on the
Our
verge of being
only
lame
hope-
duck himself.
Our only hope is the ego. That's it. to me.
The ego is
That is
the
it.
ego's a big factor.
I think that's
Absolutely.
all we've got in our favor.
I don't know about all.
The
I
ego.
don't think
of
all. We got a
numbers.
pretty big pocketbook and we've got a
Okay.
pretty big name.
Well, this fantasy land you're living in of 8-4, 9-3 next year isn't happening in 2025 unless we bring in minimum two starting offensive linemen that are good. Outside of that, we're staring right down the face of a 6-6
We
next year.
think that, but I don't mean to
And
kind of criticize, but what do we really know about offensive linemen? Are you really serious that you think that Oklahoma's offensive linemen are what, 93rd in the country? How bad are they? How bad are they compared to everybody else out there that that a competent offensive staff couldn't get out of them more than what we've seen?
And that's what we're saying. It's like we have to get rid of Bill.
if we're in the 120s in offense this year, then I would say offensive line by itself, we've got to be worse than 75 or 80.
I don't know.
Yeah,
No, I
but
disagree.
you
It's the
know-
same as
But
1998.
you know who was last year?
Look
too?
how bad we were in 1998. In 1999, we accelerated right past that with a lower level of talent than we have today.
You know who you're
defenses are
describing
better now than
exactly
they were
what you're
then.
talking about, though.
Yeah,
Who's that?
You're describing Indiana.
Yeah.
Indiana made an unbelievably. They were like 110th in offense last year,
and
now
they
they're
got
top
it
10
together with just a coach.
and they brought in
No.
some JMU players.
They brought in like 8 or 9
They're JMU players.
who lost one game the year before.
I'm
But they're
just saying they're
Against
JMU.
They're
JMU.
JMU players.
Like
Truly.
just getting people to do the right thing and teaching them how to do it and where to do it and when to do it. I wholeheartedly believe, not just an OU thing. That's why I've always been fascinated with coaching changes, because in college, the same group of players is left over and a new coach comes in and you're like, this entire team is different. It just doesn't even make sense.
With
Like,
the same
how did
humans.
they get so much better? all
And
of a
I-
sudden?
That was 2000.
I
That
agree.
was 2000.
And I
Look at
agree that
look
there's
at Texas
buzz.
A&M.
Absolutely.
Texas A&M has one loss. They're cruising towards the matchup with Texas to play in the SEC championship game.
They're in the driver's
Very
seat.
good chance to be in the playoffs. They didn't bring in
They're
a bunch
almost
of
a
players
shoo-in
from all over
for
the
the
country.
playoffs. No,
They lost players
exactly.
and
And so
got a new coaching
I
staff.
would believe that there's busts. There's not this many busts. When we're looking at our roster of 3, 4, and 5-star players, there's got to be true talent there that can be unlocked with the right coaches. And I'll give you this. Don't be surprised if Bill Bedenbaugh keeps his job and things are actually pretty good with a new staff, with new schemes and everything else. I'm not saying I'm going to throw myself on the defense of BB that he's the guy, but I could see weirder things have happened where a guy who's had a lot of success, he actually can be successful again if everything else is in place, including offensive
And what's
scheme.
even crazier is we don't have to go from 110th to top 10 like Indiana. We have to get to 50th on offense.
To be really
We
damn
have to
good.
go from 123rd to top 50, and we have 2 losses.
And fire Bill Beedman. Man, that's what this all for me. That's what it comes down to right
I
now.
think if you get if you go get an OC, I'm torn on this
Clean
because
house.
of recruiting.
No,
I think you.
I think he gets to decide.
I think
I'm
yeah,
with that.
If
exactly.
he comes
I'm
in
with
and
that.
he has conversations with Bill about what he likes to do and what the OC likes to do,
I'm with
and
that.
he gets an honest come to Jesus meeting about
Right.
the talent that we have
Right.
coming up and that's on the squad already, then
Well, not just
then
that.
the OC gets to decide
Who he is. I want that OC
if
to
he's
sit
good
down
enough
with,
or not.
and I want him to have free reign to sit down with every one of those offensive coaches and say, who are you? What's your theory? How does it work? And
Why did you do this?
and why did you do this? And if he can come, I want that both ability as well as that accountability and responsibility. It's all on you, new OC. You live or die by every decision you make, and you have free reign for each of these guys. And so, while I might be surprised if Bill Bedenbaugh and DeMarco Murray and maybe even Emmett Jones keeps their job, I'm not going to be shocked, and I'm not going to just write him off as he doesn't know what he's doing. But I'm going to say, all right, I'm kind of curious. I'm a little suspicious. You chose these guys to stay with them. Let's see if it can produce.
Unless we hear that they were told these.
And if that, you might see
Then I'll
me
have no
marching.
faith whatsoever.
You might see me marching with the sign, the
Yeah.
picket sign, fire them all, including Brent Venables. There cannot be any. He's a made man and he's safe.
Yes.
Everybody is absolutely a rehire. It is a rehire situation.
Like if you don't think that you can get a different running back coach in here, whether because you're young and you just don't know that many people that can coach running backs or whatever, and DeMarco's better than what you can get to come with you or something,
Mhm.
then fine. But yeah, like you said, if someone's told that they're untouchable
Mm.
and you just got to work around it, I wouldn't even take the job.
Yeah, you wouldn't take the job.
Don't even take the job.
In fact, that's almost a good test, a trick to bring a guy in and say, but we're going to keep these guys safe to see how he answers that question. And he gets up and starts to walk out, say, I was kidding. You're hired. That was the test we wanted to see because we want to make sure you're the right guy for the job. And the right guy for the job is going to say,
Not
I
acceptable.
absolutely, I'm not accepting it. I need absolute autonomy in this role. And that's only fair to the guy. Kind of back to your point, Jay, of if you're going to go get a guy that you really want to get, you want to get a guy who says, I'm not going to be part of a lame duck situation where you tie my hands and handcuff me here to a bad situation that I can't win in. I need to have complete control to decide and chart my own
And
course
if
here.
any of that, you know, whatever it's called, rumor is like floating out there, you're really gonna have a hard time finding.
Oh,
offensive
yes,
coordinator.
absolutely. So
Like he needs to almost openly say it in a press conference to a certain degree.
I think you're right. I think you're right. Getting to that in just a second, and another question when we turn to Outlook, which we kind of been touching on. But before we get to that, I want to shout out to our longtime supporter of the pod, Tobacco Exchange. Great sponsor of the pod. Great selection. Always hooking us up with wonderful products. Wonderful staff. Oklahoma City, Moore, and Edmond locations. Connor's making his exit. Connor, thank you for
No,
your
no, no,
time.
I'll be back.
You're coming back? All right.
Taking a
Well, you're gonna
You mean-
reload. All right. So thank you to Tobacco Exchange. What are we smoking tonight, Lucas?
So we've got a Arturo Fuente Don Carlos. It's one of my favorite of the Fuente line. Man, it's just got, it's not overpowering, but it's like in between medium and bold. It's kind of in between a Hemingway and an Opus, I'd say,
Mhm.
where it just falls right in between, just right.
I would agree with all that. Former OU quarterback Justin Fuente. I don't know if he's associated with the brand at all, but I tutored
I
him
don't think
back
he is.
back when I was in school and helped him get through college. So shout out to him. But shout out to Tobacco Exchange. Thanks for all your support and help. So I don't know what the right protocol is, and protocol is important, but at some point, communication, and we talked about this before, is real important. Communication to fans, communication to donors, who I always say are one and the same, just to different degrees, communication to recruits, communication to current players, communication to their families. We have got to communicate where we're headed, and that has got to be a part of where are we going with offensive coordinator? You're also wanting to communicate one way or another, back channel or openly, to who you're interested in. I would hope, obviously, the job's open. Hopefully, agents and lawyers are talking behind the scenes about who would be interested in what. I would hope there's a short list of who I'd want and what I want and what I'm going for. At some point, you've got to bring that out into the open, I think, to say, here's the direction we're going. Like you don't define, here's the five guys, probably. But you probably start to hint at it by saying, here's what we're looking for in the next coordinator. There's no mistake about it now with this loss. Joe John Finley and crew are not going to be retained as far as offensive coordinator and the
And
entire
he shouldn't be
staff.
tight ends coach either.
Well, yeah,
Nope.
yeah. And so it's clear that it's no longer a search where an internal candidate's going to make sense. I would hope. I would hope it's not a Kevin Johns or anything like that. So at that point, my thinking is you start to say, we're looking for an offensive coordinator that has these qualities. And those might start to make sense where people can start scratching out names from the list and adding names to the list and say, well, he said he wants this, he said he wants that, he said he wants this. Therefore, it must be one of these type of guys.
I almost feel like it needs to go further than that, even though I know it can't, because people are currently in positions they don't want that stuff out there. But we're getting to a point soon where to retain your current roster, your recruiting class, and to pique the interest of potential portal players.
And fans,
Well, yeah, and fans.
Before we
But I mean, but
start to
more
revolt.
importantly than fans, in a way, like
There's nothing more important than fans.
you have to have something for these players to grasp onto, even if it's a shoddy leak. And
Oh, leaks are great.
yes,
Leaks are
like
marvelous.
You have to have. Let's say we really do need a quarterback, which we could talk about. I do think we need a portal quarterback, if only to have a competition if
Mhm.
Arnold does stay.
Mhm.
Bring in another good experienced player. Don't promise him anything, of course.
Are you
'Cause
assuming Hawkins is gone, or are you saying we need him?
I don't care if both come back. You
Okay,
need another
okay,
guy.
okay.
But you've got to have players from okay teams that want to move up to like an OU and in the SEC, but they're a good quarterback.
Diamonds in the rough and other
You got
types
to
of
pique their
guys.
interest
Yeah.
on who we might be getting.
Got to give him hope.
And like it or not, start talking to him before you're allowed to talk to him. God's honest truth.
So you heard it here first. We're advocating
Yes.
violation.
Yes. You
Just-
tamper.
It just
You
means
back
more.
channel tamper.
Well,
That's what everybody does.
Some of that, that's kind of the is it really against the rules type of thing if everybody's doing it. There's some of that back channel stuff probably you could argue it's not against the rules because
Yeah,
everybody's doing it in the way they're
you know,
doing it. Yeah,
hey,
one way or the
Steve,
other.
I
I don't even know. Actually, I don't even know if that is against the
Hey,
rules.
Steve, could you ask Connor his thoughts
Exactly.
on this?
Exactly. I don't think
Even
that.
though he's right, I didn't.
I
Ask Connor.
don't think that's necessarily against the rules. Especially if Connor's not here and you tell me and I go and talk to my friend. So regardless, I think you're right. I think we need to do everything we can to get in all of the guys from top to bottom, from players, transfer players, recruits, as well as who you might want in an offensive staff. Because keep in mind, you're not just, as we've been talking about it, you're not just recruiting an offensive coordinator, you're recruiting potential guys to coach under him. And you want them to know, hey, this is available. You want the Emmett Jones out there, who was a really hot commodity when he was found, and we scored it, landed him. You want them to know it's an option and that it's an available job.
What really piqued my interest on this was someone like a Dan Mullins. You don't have to wait
That's
to
right.
get him.
He's open.
Right. He's available. There's the type of coach you want. You have to at least wait 3 weeks from now before they can commit to being your next offensive.
Well, and
coordinator.
I've heard talks are gonna open pretty significantly
Today,
during the bye week.
Yes.
Yeah, like I
So-
heard this week is gonna be. No, did you send that?
Yeah.
You sent that. Yeah. So
But I mean, like the I don't think you get a Dan Mullins just because he's free and available. Right. He has to be the guy you want
definitely,
to get.
yeah, definitely
He's got
not.
to fit.
But that would be very advantageous.
I mean, he made Dak Prescott good. That's got to be worth something.
Watch us go get Tom Herman.
I'm with you. Wow.
He's a head coach still.
No, but seriously,
At FAU.
no, but seriously, though, if you can get any type of head start
Mm-hmm.
on retaining players and hope for fans
Mm-hmm.
and portal guys,
Absolutely.
if you can do it, do it.
If I'm choosing, I go on the website that shows all the coaches and I click the filter button and see who uses a fullback and boom, narrow it down.
The
And
filter.
if that leaves you 5 guys in the country, I'm talking to those 5 guys.
The filter I use is the one that says the best at the top, and you like filter it
I
high.
want
You filter it
fullback.
high to low, and then you just pick the one that's on top.
I don't hold myself out as knowledgeable enough to be able to have more than what Connor says, which is best. But I do think you need to have a fit. And I will hold them accountable. They need to be good enough to know who they want.
Mhm.
Britt Venables needs to know who he wants. And I'm sorry, but it damn sure better be very heavy on best in terms of wins, losses, and all the other stuff also is there. Not all the other stuff is there and, oh, I think he can probably win. We need a guy who can win football games. That's the main thing. That's the number one. That's got to be the focus and emphasis. Everything else needs to be there. I'm not saying go get a dirt bag by any means. No, we don't want that. And I don't think you have to settle for that. But you definitely don't look at guys and start eliminating guys just because, or only identifying guys just because they fit some mission that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
That is tangential to winning football games.
Yeah, if there's a guy in there that mixes things up a little bit and says some stuff off the cuff and kind of pushes the envelope on a couple things,
That might actually be an advantage.
No, that was Jeff Lebby. We had that.
No, I don't think so. I think he's the opposite.
I think Jeff Lebby wanted nothing to do with the limelight at all. I still don't think he does. I haven't kept up with what he does at Mississippi State or anything else, but
Right
like,
where we screwed up. And we all talked about this after the hire of Venables. And we said our number one, me and Jay said our number one offensive coordinator is we should have dropped the bag on Joe Brady because he was out of a job.
We all talked
he
about
lost
that.
his job at the Panthers.
We all talked about
and he
that.
was floating around. And Caleb was going to go to LSU just because of Joe Brady, and he didn't.
Caleb would have stayed.
Caleb would have stayed.
Maybe.
The defense would have gotten better than we had. Obviously, we still didn't have the athletes in Brent's year one.
you may win a national championship last year if you have Joe Brady.
Yes,
And
because-
Caleb Williams.
and then he would have been gone.
And, yeah,
And
exactly.
we would have been looking for an offensive coordinator this year, but we would have been pushing for the now. We would have been a playoff team, I think, with last year's defense and then Caleb and last year's offensive line and wide receiver threats. That would have been a team that would definitely challenge for a playoff spot.
Well, yeah, we only lost 2.
And then Brady probably
Barely
takes an
lost 2
NFL OC job because maybe he doesn't recruit or whatever.
Right.
But you're further along in the offensive process then.
I would
we
think
went
that-
10-2 last year with Jeff Lebby. That's 12-0 with Joe Brady.
10-3.
And
I know
Caleb.
you don't count the ball game, but
Not
yes.
involved.
So I will take it a step further. If you are looking at candidates and you got a guy and the only negative is you think he will be
Leave?
so good that he might leave, you jump on him
Every time.
every time.
Which
Look
is
at all the
what-
guys
who
Nick
did?
Saban went
Yeah,
through.
Thank you.
You want that in your program and you damn sure want it right now. You need it as bad as you can get it.
Yeah.
If you get a guy who's in there and says, you know what? I definitely want this job. I think I can succeed. And here's partially why I think this will get me an NFL job. You're interested.
Bob did it with Lincoln.
You're more
Because
interested.
the rumors were that before Bob stepped down, he was Oregon's choice for head coach. And then Bob stepped down and handed the reins over to Lincoln. But if he would have left, you're fine with him coming in for 3 years and turning what was it, 15. See, he was here 2 years before Bob stepped down. But you would take those 2 years of that explosive offense and then you go find another guy. Or if Bob still decides to step down because Lincoln goes to Oregon, then you get a new head coach at that point. But you can't be scared by the fact you can't be Mike Gundy where you're getting a guy from Youngstown State
Yes,
or
they don't
wherever
leave.
the guy he pulls Middle Tennessee or something.
Great example.
So you can he's gonna be here 5 to 6 years. He's not going anywhere. You
Great
don't-
example. Look at Todd Monken.
Yeah.
Look how good he is. What he's doing.
One Gundy started
You
that
can't
way.
let those
He had
guys go.
He had Dana Holgerson.
Yep.
He had
Well, he got tired of him leaving.
Yeah.
Which is
that's when the
pathetic.
point changed.
Yes,
that
which
he
is
started
wrong.
going after
It's the
guys that
wrong-
nobody
it's
ever-
It's lazy.
and look
It
what
is
look
lazy.
what that's happened to him now.
We need to not be that as much as we can be.
Yeah.
It to me, we got to get started right away. And so to that end, I got a question for you guys. And I don't take this as leading because I don't think I'm sold on this idea. But is it better not to make a bowl game? Here's the pros cons that I see. If you don't make a bowl game,
But we're not. So.
assuming,
Okay.
but I'm not saying we throw the 2 games, but I'm saying in our hopes or how we feel about it when we do or don't win. The advantages of not making a bowl game is the bowl game's meaningless. Yes, we get additional practices. I'll come back on the pro column for it in a second. But for the cons of a bowl game, you can get started on the future and you can focus on recruiting. You can focus on getting your staff together. You can focus on self-reflection and everything you need to do to get the program right. Now, granted, I don't know what the contact rules are if you don't have a bowl game. I know you can't have the practices. I don't know how much they're going to get out of practices with this existing group, though.
Right.
Unless
What
you have the OC that you're gonna hire,
And
in
he's not
there,
gonna come
and
in
he
and
won't
do
come in.
something.
He won't do
I
anything.
mean, maybe Dan Mullen would, but
It's the
otherwise,
same- it's the same
is
thing
that
as Latrell.
negative? Is that negative?
Latrell ran Webby's
practice?
playbook last
No,
last year.
I think you outside of a playoff OC, you're gonna get whoever you want going into you're still gonna get your 15 practices, you're gonna play the bowl game. But the day after the LSU game, if you've got your guy figured out, unless he's a playoff guy, he's not staying for the bowl game. Like Mike Stoops.
So maybe that's
I mean,
the
you got that
difference.
situation.
If you get the guy who can immediately come and start having his influence and getting his practices in,
Yeah.
then yes, make
and
the
we're
bowl
only talking
game.
about 12 guys.
If you don't and you're waiting anyway, why don't you just refocus all of your efforts towards recruiting and everything else you need to do, which includes transfer portal recruiting, and not waste your time with what might be negative practices
And
of these guys.
current team recruiting.
and current team recruiting. Say, look, we're not going to distract you with practice. We're going to distract you with off-season starts today. and let's go get in the weight
there's
room
some
and all
type of
that.
dead period in December on the portal where, the portal doesn't open until, don't quote me, but I
Well, I'm
want to
talking
say it's
back
like,
channel stuff.
I'm saying it's like, well, you can do that now.
Well, but you could do it
you
even
can tell
more so.
guys
You
are,
can do it
what's
even
someone you
more
have-
so
Yes,
if
yes.
you're not distracted
you
by
could get a
practice.
Deion Burks conversation started
Sure.
now if he's at Purdue because they're not going anywhere and he's a really good athlete on a lower level team. You can do that now.
So is there, I guess what I'm asking, do you feel there's a silver lining to not making a bowl game?
Saving me money from driving to somewhere and watching.
won't
To
do
get,
that.
That's the
getting,
silver lining.
you and I getting fooled into thinking we need to go to San Antonio?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
could be it.
that's a silver lining of that.
I think there is a silver lining to, I mean, kind of what you're getting at and kind of what we talked about earlier. There is something to kind of just cutting your losses.
Like-
And you, with a bowl game, you've got to wait 3 more weeks to cut your losses and move on.
And here's how bad it is. Connor and I had this conversation on the way back. I want to get your idea on this in a second, Jay. We actually said, in one mind, we're actually disappointed the season has 2 more games to it. I kind of like it to be dead
It's
and
already
done.
over. Yeah.
It is already over. It'd be nice if it was truly over and we didn't have to suffer through what we may be about to suffer through and everything else. Just like, let's be done and be moving on to 2025. And that's my way of saying silver lining. No bowl game, you're moving on to 2025. What did you have to say though?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think the positive coming out of losing last night is it kind of sinks in and hits home to BV and his staff and everybody else. Like, this really is where it's at. Like, I don't
There's
know
no
that,
hiding it.
I don't know that you were gonna be, more happy or comfortable because you won last night and you are making a bowl game now and everything's just a little bit rosier than it was, because obviously it's not. But I think when you know right now, this really isn't happening. We're really not making a bowl for the
Yeah.
first time in 25 years. And
There's an outside chance that we go to LSU and we start the game like South Carolina started with us.
And we
And
win.
you, and you
Yes.
get 21 points off some dumb crap that LSU does.
and they have
or-
not looked good.
Where the ball falls out of their hands, like Jackson Arnold just drops the ball. Does he have the smallest hands in
I don't
college
know.
quarterback?
Baby hands.
I don't know. But is that a possibility that Homer wise, that something happens like the start of the South Carolina game and you're at LSU and you just so happen to do something crazy?
Yes, we were up 14-10 at halftime with Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Things can happen.
So yes, it can happen.
So, yeah, and then we're in a bowl game, and hopefully we make the most of what that is.
I
But
mean, I don't think the team's gonna quit.
I like your take on the loss, and I already sense, and I know the people I'm thinking of right now that are going to say I'm like finding an optimistic Homer take on losing a game. I'm not. But I'll relate it in a real world example. Many of us, including my friend JT and his dad, in 1998, when we won our last 2 games, we beat Texas Tech, I think, in the last game. And JT called his dad or talked to his dad, and his dad was distraught. He was beside himself. And he said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "I'm afraid they're going to keep him. I'm afraid
Like
we're not
gonna
going to
save
make the
Blake's
change,
job.
and it's
Yeah.
going to save his job." And all of us had that slight worry that it might happen. But last night was the absolute nail in the coffin. This offensive staff, as a unit, as they are together now, dead. Some of them may be retained for sure, but we know we have to make the change, and we know, and Brent has to know, everyone has to know, next season, if there was any debate, it is make or break next year. He's got to do enough to keep his job next year, which is a very high threshold. It can't be good enough. It's got to be, you got to show us where you're going to get, and you got to get there fast. And there's just no grace period for it. So that is a silver lining to the debacle that was last night. If we hold on and win that game, there are people who look back and say, we won the game, the defense held, everything's okay, or it's okay enough.
There's no chance Joe John was.
I don't mean Joe John was going to keep his job. I just mean that it wasn't. I am actually getting at the fact that Brent Venables is on the hot seat now. If he wasn't on the hot seat, there's no doubt about it. He's on the hot seat, and the hot seat's a better place to be than I don't know if I'm on the
Yeah, I
hot
think
seat.
we know where we stand.
We know where we stand.
Well, I'm most disappointed in the bowl streak. We haven't,
Yeah.
we played a bowl every year from 99 to current.
I'm with you.
And
I'm with you.
that sucks to lose that.
It really sucks.
If we don't sneak something out for the next 2 games somehow.
It really, really sucks. I mean, I'm big on history and all of those type of things, streaks and continuity, and the fact that, you know, I don't want us to ever have a losing season for that reason, and all of that. It's just, to me, that probably has undue weight and influence, that means more to me than it probably should.
Is
But
BV safe? No matter what.
it could keep us from being as good as we need to be by hanging on to those type of things. And this may be the cleaning point where you look back at Alabama. I'm going to get to your question. We look back at Alabama, and they had bad seasons to get to it. It takes something that just completely cleanses the palate and removes all doubt to know here's what you're up against, and we know this isn't good enough. Let's get there. Is BV safe this year?
I mean, does it matter what we look like these next 2 games?
I don't think so.
I just don't think there's enough money. It's like 45 million.
I don't think it's money. I think
if it was 20 million, he's gone.
I don't think so. I hope
do.
not.
If we lose
I
the
don't
next
know.
2 games
I'm
and
torn.
finish 5 and 7, and his buyout's 20 million, I think it's 95% chance
I-
that Josie makes it.
I think that's a bad. I don't have a lot of faith in Joe C. one way or the other to make good decisions. I
Does
don't
it
know if
make it-
he's the
does it-
decision maker there anyway, but I
Does it
don't
make it
like
look
that
like you're-
idea.
We know we've got a ways to go, but could the last 2 games really make it look like crap? We are further away than I even thought.
I mean, I think there's a possibility of that. What I think is the fact that you don't want to give a guy just 3 years. I always say that the last ditch efforts to fire the coordinators, which is what Florida State's just done as of today. And I think that you have to give a coach that grace that you say, look, you can clean house and this is your last shot. And I think he deserves, I hate to use the word deserves, but you have to give a guy that you deserve the chance to clean house in one last shot. And this is the one last shot. I don't think we came into the
But you
season
didn't
with
say that
one
about
last
Blake.
shot.
Blake, 3 years and he was gone. And
No, he did.
everybody-
He fired his coordinators and brought the new coordinators in, Joe Dickinson and
Well,
the guy from Texas Tech.
he had a
in the
new
last
coordinator this
season.
year.
Yeah.
He has 2
He
new
had one.
coordinators. He has 2.
He had one because he let him go, and he took another job. It wasn't the same thing. It wasn't. We were 10-3.
Levy would have still been here. If
Yeah,
he
we
wasn't taking a
we
break.
were 10-3, and it wasn't like you need to get your coordinators done and that's your last shot. This is
But
you
he
have a
did fire a
last shot.
defensive coordinator.
Yeah,
He did. I
Kind
mean,
of.
Roop was still under contract, so he let him go. And
Yeah, not
Schnellenberger,
the same.
Schnellenberger experiment
Not the
lasted
same.
1 year,
not the same.
and then
Not
Blake
the same.
got 3.
Not the same.
So
Not the same.
I think-
Coming out of a 10-3 year, it was not the same to say this is your make or break. No one said that Brent Venables entered on the hot seat. He's clearly entering on the. I think a coach deserves to have a year of entering in on the hot seat.
Yeah, that's fair.
But
I'm not here for fair. I'm
It
here for
could-
winning games.
but again, who are you going to get? I don't think you want to get you project that image, and they're going to say, I don't want to go to Oklahoma. Oklahoma's like LSU, where if you don't produce instantaneously and without any break, you're gone.
And they've had a
That's
problem getting
bad.
good head coaches. No,
I think they have had a problem getting and keeping head coaches. I mean, Les Miles was a goofy luck situation that he produced they don't deserve
Won a national
what
championship.
he won 2, and he didn't.
Ed Orgeron won.
And
national
those were
championship.
joke and Orgeron, and then they let him go. I mean, I don't know. They were able to get a guy who kind of was run out of town at Notre
I
Dame.
don't think if we got
I
rid
don't
of
want to
Brent-
be LSU.
If we got rid of Brent this year, I don't think they look at us as Auburn, where they were going through a guy every 2 or 3 years. They went.
I fear
They
that
had
we would.
Chiswick. They
I
had,
fear that we would be the next
Malzahn.
Auburn.
Malzahn. They had.
I actually fear that a lot. I fear us being
Those guys
Nebraska.
won. Who won the national championship? Was it Chiswick that won the national championship, and then 2 years
Yes.
later,
Yes,
or no, he got 1 more year, and then he was gone.
I fear us being Auburn. I fear us being Nebraska, and I fear it from a number of standpoints. It is a fine line, and some of it is sticking with the guy too long, and some of it's being too quick to let a guy go. And I don't know what the right mix is.
We got to save some of this for the midweek.
I also don't
since we
know.
don't have a game.
I also don't know who there is either.
who you're gonna go get.
Yeah.
We could get a guy.
Well, like you've been talking about the
But-
Indiana guy,
I think it would be clear who
his
you're gonna
buyout can't
get.
be 15 million at Indiana.
I
at
think
most. I mean,
But I think it'd be clear who you're gonna get after next year versus this year. I think you would struggle to get the guy this year in a way that you would have more luxury because you'd have the entire year or most of the entire year to get the guy in 2025. And it will become apparent by Texas next year if Brent Venables is done. I'll say that. That's a prediction that I would give some pretty good credibility or confidence to, that I think by Texas, one way or another, we'll know if Brent Venables is a lame duck or if he's going to make it. And if he's a lame duck, then the administration has an ability to go out and shop and find the right guy. Versus if you're in 3 weeks after LSU, if you're out there hunting for a guy, that's kind of desperate. I don't know,
unless you've already got an agreement with a playoff OC,
unless you got a guy.
unless that's the only case that
I'm
you,
afraid
you have to have somebody by signing day.
Oh yeah,
Which what day signing day? is?
December.
Is it the week after the conference championship games?
No, well, no. The early signing day is well before. After the conference
Yeah, after the conference
championship.
championship. like
Yeah, I think
second
it's a
of
week
December,
after.
something like
Yeah,
that.
something like third
Yeah.
week. Yeah,
You have to have somebody
Yeah.
by probably 5 days before signing day.
right. One way or the other.
Yeah, unless, like I said, well, even if it's a playoff
And next
OC,
year you would. Yeah. And next year you
he'll
would.
still
but
coach the
you're
playoff.
not going to get. Well,
It might be a
Texas
playoff guy.
Texas OC is Sark. I mean,
It might be a playoff guy. It might be a playoff head coach. It might be Indiana's head coach. It might be. There's plenty of guys who Oklahoma's a better job. It's just flat out better job. I mean, it's not going to be DeBear. It's not going to be
Lanning. it's
Lanning.
not
I'm
gonna be
afraid.
yeah,
I'm afraid
Dave.
if we got rid of BV now, I don't know that you can go take a coordinator again. I think you have to get someone who
He's a head
is a
coach.
successful head coach,
I think you're probably right.
because Lincoln was an offensive coordinator and didn't take the program where we needed to go. Brent was a lifetime defensive coordinator.
Bob
Same
did.
thing.
Switzer did.
There's
don't know.
not a lot of those guys. I think
Yeah, I
you
agree.
find more examples with head coaches with experience. We've actually been lucky. Now, the
They've
other
all
thing,
moved up. Saban was a coordinator.
Well, they all have to.
Dan
It's
Lanning
hard.
is a
But
but
someone,
very few guys get their start at the dynasty.
right, and we've
level.
done it twice in a row.
Right,
They're
short of the dynasty. Yeah,
3 times.
yeah.
What do you mean?
No, he's
their
saying
first,
Lincoln and Venables.
their first head coaching job.
And Stoops
Yeah, but
3 times in a row.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
but OU wasn't.
I mean,
in
we were
that-
down.
in that moment.
We were
very
way
Well,
down.
right,
We
yeah.
were way down.
Right now, though, for Lincoln to take over an OU was like you're handing the keys to Lamborghini,
But
right?
if Lincoln
And
just
same for
hired a
BB.
competent DC, we have 3 national championships over a 5-year period.
Yeah, but
Sure.
That's
that's-
all it took was for him to hire
that's how
one
we feel.
good DC.
And
That's
so
how
if
we
I'm
feel
Brent
right now.
Venables'
In
agent,
17,
I'd say
18,
that's all
19,
we
20.
need is an
That's how I
OC.
feel.
He had 5
And we're
years.
there.
He had 5
All we
years
need is an
to
OC.
hire a competent DC.
And Venables is on
And
his
we
third.
win 3 national championships. We probably win 17,
Or as the
18,
Germans
19,
would
maybe.
say, he's on his third. So I think that you give him another year and you see, but to me,
Mm.
I've come a long way in the last few weeks to say, as much as I want this to work, I definitely fear that we're not Bob's hiring, we're not in the Bob Stoops situation, we're in the John Blake situation. And that's the difference between the two guys.
Well, then why drag it out?
But
That's what I say
that's
about
my
next year.
fear. That's my fear. I'm saying you give it one more year and you determine it. You have to let it run its course and determine it.
I think next year, obviously, we're getting a new offensive coordinator. I think it really matters what it looks like. Are all the little things
There.
fixed? Is it smoother? Is it better?
Is it
Are
competitive?
players improving? Yes. Are we winning games we should? And are we closely losing games?
That
We
should be
should.
close.
Yeah.
Mhm. I think that's it's general terminology, but that's all we can go on. That's really what it should be. And if you evaluate this year,
Like there's two
you're
games.
failing and failing
There's two games we should have won this year.
that we didn't.
South Carolina and Missouri.
Uh-huh.
And we would all feel completely different having those two victories right now.
And there's 3 games we should have been competitive in that we weren't, maybe one we were. Ole Miss, maybe great on a curve, we were. All things considered, we were definitely not competitive at Texas. We were
What was the Texas halftime?
also Tennessee, not so competitive.
I don't know. They had like 7 freaking yards the first quarter or something stupid.
Yeah.
It just not, you know, I judge it by my demeanor and how I feel. And I've been to enough games, watched enough games that I think I have a pretty good feel for, are we being competitive or
I
not?
just think you can see it.
And you can see.
I mean,
it,
you
can
don't have that
feel
great
it.
of a feel because you picked us to win against Missouri.
No, I have a feel
by the
for.
way, am
I'm saying
10-0
during the game.
Picking the correct winner of the Oklahoma games this season.
e-
10-0.
Yeah, and only one of those have you gone against the favorite underdog situation, Missouri, right? What an easy thing to do.
I
What
don't
I'm
remember.
saying is, as the game plays out, last night, we were up 9-3, and I felt very bad. I didn't feel like we were going to win that game. I've seen us in games where we're down 7 points, and I have no doubt we're going to win this game.
See, I thought we were going to at 9-3. I felt like there was a 70% chance
That's where I have a
we
better
kept
feel.
going.
What I'm getting at is, I think that the feel of are you competitive or not is something that is, it's not something that you can just put raw numbers to or quantify. It's just something that is gut instinct, and you just feel it and you know. And that's the problem right now. We're not competitive. Whether we, if Hawkins does some magic and we win Tennessee, if we see some magic hold last night and we win against Missouri, I'm not feeling good about that Missouri win. I know it wasn't good. It just wasn't good, and none of us would have felt good about that victory.
We'd have been happy about the
We've been
bowl-
happy about
bowl
the
game.
victory and all that, but we were not feeling like, yes, this is right. Whereas, better, correct or not, when we were winning by the hair of a
21
chins in the 21 season, and many of the Lincoln seasons, we still felt like that was the right thing. We lost to Texas in 18, and the feeling was we should have won that game. We win against Iowa State, we win against Oklahoma State, and the feeling is we deserve to win, we deserve better, and it shouldn't be this tight, but we
Yeah.
deserve to win. And this is the opposite right now. When we win, it's like, I don't know how we beat Houston. And when we lose, it's like, yeah, I see it. And that's got to change. All of that's got to change. Well, we're gonna come back. We're gonna cover that. We're gonna cover a lot of stuff on the midweek. We got a lot of soul searching to do. The university does, and the program does as well. Anything else to close before we're done with this?
Yeah, I do.
What do you got?
This is supposed to be my happy time of year, and I'm really pissed.
This is your
Personally,
happy time.
this is my happy time,
Aw,
and it's just being robbed
they're robbing
with
you.
horrendous
You deserve better.
displays of football.
You just can I entertain you with the idea of a Christmas tree cake? That is actually joy in a little wrapper. That is something that can bring you here. I'm gonna give
I
this
need
to
it.
you. I want
I
you.
need a truckload of these.
I know a guy who drives a truck,
Yes.
and he can deliver those to your door. I think he makes like he's door dashing them to everywhere. Thank you to Little Debbie. Thank you for staying with us. We're gonna stick with the Sooners. We got hope, but we've also got criticism. And we're going to have more on the post-week pod. Until then, Boomer.
Sooner.